January 1st, 2024. As guests gathered at Chicago's Palmer House Hotel for a glamorous New Year's Day wedding, they instead witnessed a scene of horror. A bride's lifeless body being wheeled out, her designer wedding dress soaked in blood, while her would-be husband was led away in handcuffs. The happy murmurs of 300 wedding guests turned to gasps of shock and disbelief. What should have been a celebration of new beginnings became the first murder of the new year. This is the story of how a wealthy Chicago couple's dream wedding turned into a nightmare, and the deadly secret that shattered their perfect facade just hours before they were meant to say, "I do." Before we dive into the events that led to this tragic New Year's morning, let's meet the people at the center of this story. Destiny Robinson wasn't your typical Chicago socialite. At just 32, she had already made a name for herself as one of Goldman Sachs' youngest vice presidents, managing portfolios worth billions. Born and raised on Chicago's South Side, she fought her way through Northwestern University on scholarships, graduating at the top of her class. Her colleagues described her as brilliant, ambitious, and unstoppable. Destiny wasn't handed anything, her former mentor would later tell investigators. She built her success brick by brick. Marcus Thompson, the 35-year-old groom, had a similar rise to success. Starting as a construction worker's son from Bronzeville, he built his real estate development company from the ground up. By 2023, Thompson Properties was responsible for some of Chicago's most prestigious urban renewal projects. Known for his calm demeanor and sharp business mind, Marcus was respected across the city's business community. He was the last person you'd expect to snap, one associate would later comment. Always in control, always calculated. Then there was Daniel Dan Carter, Marcus's best friend since their days at Howard University and a partner in Thompson Properties. The charming, smooth-talking half of the business, Dan handled the client relationships while Marcus managed the developments. They were like brothers, people said, until they weren't. These three lives became fatally intertwined in Chicago's high-stakes world of money, power, and ambition. But what no one knew on that crisp New Year's morning was that one of them had been orchestrating a plan that would turn a wedding into a funeral. But to understand what really happened in that hotel room, we need to go back to where it all began. A chance meeting at Chicago's most exclusive rooftop bar exactly 1 year earlier. On New Year's Eve 2022, Chicago's Aviary rooftop bar sparkled with the city's elite. Destiny Robinson was celebrating closing her biggest deal of the year, a $500 million investment portfolio. Marcus Thompson had just secured the contract for redeveloping the historic Bronzeville district. Neither knew this night would change their lives forever. Their eyes met across the crowded bar. Within minutes, they were deep in conversation about their shared Southside roots and parallel journeys to success. As midnight struck and fireworks lit up the Chicago skyline, they shared their first kiss. Over the next 6 months, Marcus and Destiny became Chicago's most talked-about power couple. They were featured in Michigan Avenue magazine's Power Players Under 40. Their Instagram photos at charity galas and black tie events painted a picture of perfect love amid success. When they walked into a room, heads turned. By summer 2023, their romance had become the stuff of legend in Chicago's black business circles. Marcus proposed during the annual Black Excellence Foundation Gala, dropping to one knee before the city's most influential leaders. The moment went viral, with Senator Angela Richardson, the evening's keynote speaker, congratulating them on stage. Their wedding planning captured the imagination of Chicago's elite. The New Year's Day ceremony was meant to be a statement, the union of two self-made success stories starting fresh in 2024. They hired the city's most exclusive planners, booked the historic Palmer House, and curated a guest list of 300 of Chicago's most prominent figures. Every detail was carefully chosen to reflect their journey. The menu featured elevated versions of Southside classics. The decor would blend modern luxury with touches of African-American heritage. Even their wedding hashtag told a story, destined for Thompson 2024. Dan Carter stood beside them through it all, helping plan the engagement, tasting wedding cakes, arranging the bachelor party. The best friend, the trusted confidant, the best man. No one saw the storm brewing behind his supportive smile. As December 2023 drew to a close, Chicago society buzzed with anticipation for what was being called the wedding of the year. Magazines were bidding for exclusive coverage. Social media influencers angled for invitations. In their final wedding planning meeting, Destiny turned to Marcus and smiled. "This is going to be perfect," she said. She couldn't have known that in just a few days, those carefully laid plans would unravel in the most tragic way possible. While Chicago society marveled at the perfect couple, a different story was unfolding behind closed doors. In late September 2023, just months after the spectacular proposal, Destiny began staying late at the Thompson Properties office, working closely with Dan Carter on investment strategies for their newest development. What started as innocent coffee meetings turned into private dinners at discreet restaurants in neighboring suburbs. Dan and Destiny found themselves sharing more than just business plans. They connected over their shared pressures of being young, Black professionals in Chicago's cutthroat business world, the weight of expectations, the loneliness at the top. October brought close calls. A junior associate almost walked in on them in Dan's office after hours. A society photographer at Gibson's Steakhouse nearly caught them at a corner table. Each near discovery added to the thrill and to Destiny's growing guilt. As wedding plans accelerated in November, Dan's attachment deepened. Late-night texts became more frequent. "We need to talk about us," he would write, only to delete the messages minutes later. Destiny began wearing scarves to hide the tension in her shoulders, popping anxiety medication to keep her smile in place during cake tastings and venue tours. December arrived with mounting pressure. Dan started taking risks, showing up at places he knew Destiny would be. At the final wedding venue walkthrough, he pulled her aside, desperation in his eyes. "We can't keep doing this," he whispered. "I'm falling in love with you." Destiny promised to end it. After New Year's, she told Dan, "Let me get through the holidays." But as their secret meetings continued, she had no idea that someone had already noticed the pattern. Someone was watching, waiting, and planning to expose everything at the most devastating moment possible. January 1st, 2024 dawned crisp and clear over Chicago. By 8 a.m., the Palmer House Hotel buzzed with activity. In the grand ballroom, florists arranged towering displays of white roses and crystal-draped centerpieces. The string quartet arrived early, their music floating through the historic halls during sound check. In the bridal suite on the 15th floor, Destiny sat before a massive gilt mirror while her makeup artist applied the finishing touches. Her Vera Wang gown hung nearby, catching the morning light. On her phone, congratulatory texts poured in from well-wishers. None from Dan. 3 floors below, Marcus adjusted his bow tie in his own suite. The morning had started perfectly, his mother's favorite gospel song playing while his groomsmen joked about his last moments of freedom. At 10:47 a.m., his phone buzzed. An unknown number. The first message was a photo, then another, and another. Marcus's hands began to shake. There was Destiny, caught in intimate moments with Dan. Timestamps, locations, hotel receipts, the most recent from just 2 days ago. A final message appeared. She never planned to end it. Happy New Year. The groomsmen's laughter faded to background noise. The gospel music became static. In that moment, all Marcus could hear was his own heartbeat as months of suspicious business meetings and late nights suddenly made sense. His best friend, his fiancée, his future, all lies. Marcus walked out of his suite, leaving his confused groomsmen behind. The elevator ride to the bridal suite felt endless. His footsteps echoed in the plush hallway, each step bringing him closer to a confrontation that would turn a wedding day into a crime scene. Marcus burst into the bridal suite, his phone gripped tight in his trembling hand. Destiny stood in her wedding dress, a vision in white that now seemed like a cruel joke. The makeup artist quickly gathered her things and slipped out, closing the door behind her. "Is this what you've been doing all those late nights at the office?" Marcus's voice was low, dangerous, as he held up his phone displaying the photos. "With Dan? My best friend?" Destiny's shoulders straightened, something shifting in her expression. "You want to know why?" Her voice trembled but grew stronger. "When was the last time you actually spent time with me, Marcus? Really spent time with me? Not talking about business, not networking, not building your precious empire?" Don't you dare turn this around on me, Marcus snarled. I built all of this for us. For us? Destiny laughed bitterly. No, Marcus, for you. Always for you. Dan actually sees me. He listens. He doesn't check his phone every 5 minutes during dinner. He doesn't cancel dates for business meetings. When I'm with him, I'm not just another asset in your perfect portfolio. Marcus stepped closer, his breathing heavy. So while I was building our future, you were sleeping with my best friend because, what, he had more free time? He understands what I need, Destiny shot back. He knows there's more to life than being Chicago's next big name. Do you know what Dan said when I told him about my father's death anniversary last month? He took me to the cemetery. You? You sent a text saying you'd make it up to me after your investors meeting, and that justifies betraying me, humiliating me? Marcus's voice rose. Making me look like a fool while you two laughed behind my back? We never laughed at you, Destiny's voice softened, but Dan gives me what you can't. Time, attention, love that doesn't come with a business plan attached. The word love did it. Something in Marcus's eyes changed, turned cold and empty. Love? He whispered. You want to talk about love? His hand moved to his jacket pocket, pulling out the small handgun he'd started carrying after a recent project site robbery. Destiny's eyes widened at the sight. Marcus, please. She stepped backward, her hands raised. I gave you everything. His voice cracked. My trust, my life, my future. 3 shots rang out in quick succession. The first hit Destiny in the chest, the second in the shoulder as she fell. The third missed, embedding itself in the wall behind her. Her white dress bloomed red as she collapsed onto the plush carpet, one hand still reaching out toward him. In the hallway, the string quartet's music drifted up from below, playing Pachelbel's Canon, the piece that was supposed to accompany Destiny down the aisle. Inside the bridal suite, Marcus stood motionless, the gun still warm in his hand, staring at the woman who had been his fiancée just moments before. Blood seeped into the expensive carpet as Destiny Robinson lay lifeless in her wedding dress, her last words forever unspoken. As the last notes of Pachelbel's Canon faded away, chaos erupted. The first person to hear the shots was a housekeeper, who immediately called 911. Within minutes, the elegant halls of Palmer House Hotel transformed into a crime scene. Police sirens wailed outside as guests in their wedding finery were ushered out of the building. Chicago PD found Marcus Thompson sitting in the hotel lobby, the gun placed on the marble table before him. His white tuxedo shirt was spattered with red, his eyes vacant. He made no attempt to run, no attempt to resist. She's in the bridal suite, was all he said as they handcuffed him. Upstairs, detectives worked methodically, photographing the scene. 3 shell casings lay scattered on the blood-stained carpet. On the dressing table, Destiny's phone still buzzed with messages from concerned guests wondering about the delay. A half-empty champagne glass sat next to her wedding vows, the paper now speckled with red. But it was Marcus's phone that caught the investigators' attention. The anonymous texts that had triggered the tragedy had vanished, deleted remotely minutes after the shots were fired. Someone had orchestrated this moment, ensuring the messages would disappear almost as quickly as they had arrived. As word spread through Chicago's elite circles, Dan Carter arrived at the police station, his face turned ashen when detectives showed him photos of the crime scene. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he whispered, before immediately asking for a lawyer. The investigation was about to uncover a web of betrayal far more complex than a simple love triangle. While Marcus Thompson sat in custody, investigators began unraveling the events that led to Chicago's first murder of 2024. Cell phone records revealed over 2,000 text messages between Destiny and Dan in the past 3 months alone. Hotel receipts showed multiple meetings at the Peninsula Chicago, always booked under Dan's corporate account. But the most damning evidence came from Destiny's personal laptop, found in her bridal suite. Her draft emails folder contained an unsent message to Marcus, dated December 31st, 2023. "I can't go through with tomorrow. The guilt is eating me alive. You deserve to know the truth." As detectives dug deeper, a second layer emerged. Dan Carter's financial records showed suspicious transfers, $50,000 withdrawn in cash over the past month. Meanwhile, someone had accessed Marcus's private email account repeatedly from an IP address traced to a cyber cafe in downtown Chicago. Security footage from the Palmer House lobby revealed something crucial. At 10:30 a.m. that morning, a woman in hotel staff uniform had accessed the service elevator to the floor where Marcus was getting ready. She wasn't part of the hotel staff. The same woman was seen leaving shortly after the time Marcus received the anonymous texts. The question was no longer just about a crime of passion. Who had orchestrated this tragedy? Was Dan Carter's affair with Destiny part of a larger plan? And who was the mysterious woman who ensured Marcus would discover the truth at the most devastating moment possible? As Chicago's first hours of 2024 ticked by, investigators began to suspect that what appeared to be a simple case of betrayal and revenge might be something far more calculated. Detective Lisa Bratt stood before the evidence board, studying the grainy security footage of the mysterious woman. Something about her movements seemed practiced, deliberate. This wasn't an opportunistic information leak. It was a precisely executed plan. Look at this. Bratt's partner, Detective Charles Rodriguez, called from his desk. He'd been combing through Thompson Properties' financial records. 3 months ago, the company lost a major development bid for the South Shore Cultural Center renovation. Guess who won it? Carter Development LLC, Bratt read over his shoulder. Wait, Dan Carter had a separate company? The discovery opened a new avenue of investigation. Dan Carter, it seemed, had been quietly building his own real estate empire behind Marcus Thompson's back. The company was registered just 2 weeks after his affair with Destiny began, but it was Destiny's role that raised the most questions. Her Goldman Sachs email revealed she'd been advising Carter Development LLC through a private consulting arrangement. She'd helped Dan secure funding for projects that directly competed with Thompson Properties. The investigators pulled up footage from other hotels where Dan and Destiny had met. The same mystery woman appeared in several clips, always in different uniforms, always lurking in the background. She wasn't just a hired hand for the wedding day. She'd been watching them for months. In the interrogation room, Dan Carter finally broke his silence. "You don't understand," he said, his composed facade cracking. "Marcus wasn't the target. He was never supposed to be there. This wasn't about him." "Then who was it about?" Detective Bratt pressed. Dan's next words changed the entire direction of the investigation. "Ask about the South Shore Cultural Center bid. Ask about what really happened to the original development plans. And ask about Patricia Thompson." The name hit like a thunderbolt. Patricia Thompson, Marcus's mother, whose death 10 years ago had driven him to build his real estate empire. The woman whose gospel music had been playing in his suite that morning. The detective's phone buzzed with a message from the forensics team. The mystery woman's fingerprints had found a match in the system. As Bratt read the name, her blood ran cold. The pieces were starting to fit together, revealing a revenge plot a decade in the making. Back at Palmer House, crime scene technicians made another discovery. Hidden in the lining of Destiny's wedding dress was a USB drive. Its contents would reveal that this case wasn't just about a love triangle or business rivalry. It was about a long-buried secret that would shake Chicago's business community to its core. The USB drive found in Destiny's wedding dress contained a folder labeled Patricia Thompson 2014. Inside were hundreds of documents, emails, financial records, and photographs that told a story very different from the official version of Patricia Thompson's death. Detective Bratt spread the printouts across her desk. According to the official report, Patricia Thompson had died of a heart attack while alone in her South Side home. But the emails on the drive painted a more sinister picture. The night before her death, Patricia had discovered irregularities in the books of the construction company where she worked as an accountant. "Look at this," Detective Rodriguez pointed to an email Patricia had drafted the night she died. It was addressed to the SEC, detailing how millions in development funds meant for Southside community projects had been embezzled. The email was never sent. The mystery woman's identity finally came into focus. Facial recognition confirmed what the fingerprints had suggested. She was Angela Thompson, Patricia's younger sister, who had disappeared from Chicago 10 years ago, the same night her sister died. In the interrogation room, Dan Carter's composure crumbled completely when shown Angela's photo. "She came to me 6 months ago," he confessed. showed me proof that the company that stole those funds, it became the seed money for Thompson Properties. Marcus's entire empire was built on stolen community development money. His own mother discovered it, and he couldn't finish the sentence. The plan, as Dan revealed it, had been methodically crafted. Angela had spent years gathering evidence. She needed someone inside Thompson Properties, and Dan, with his own resentments about being treated as Marcus's subordinate, had proved willing. Destiny was never meant to be anything more than a way to access company records. But you fell in love with her, Detective Bratt stated. Dan's eyes welled up. She found out the truth 2 days ago. About Patricia. About everything. That's why she was going to call off the wedding. She couldn't marry him knowing. He buried his face in his hands. Angela wasn't supposed to send those photos to Marcus. That wasn't part of the plan. We were just supposed to expose the company's origins after the merger next week. Meanwhile, at Cook County Jail, Marcus Thompson sat in his cell, still in his blood-stained tuxedo. When detectives showed him the evidence from the USB drive, his face remained impassive. Only when they placed Patricia's last email in front of him did he finally speak. "You don't understand," he whispered. "Mom wasn't supposed to be there that night. She never worked late. Never. If she had just stayed home like she was supposed to." As January 1st, 2024 drew to a close, the investigation had uncovered a tragedy far deeper than a wedding day murder. It was a story of stolen dreams, corrupted ambitions, and the brutal price of success. A story that began not with a love triangle, but with a son's desperate choice one night 10 years ago. A choice that had finally come full circle in a blood-stained bridal suite at the Palmer House Hotel. But there was still one piece missing. Angela Thompson had vanished again, and somewhere in Chicago, she carried the last piece of evidence, the security footage from the night Patricia Thompson died. Footage that would prove whether Marcus Thompson had merely discovered his mother's body that night, or if he had put it there himself. The indictment against Marcus Thompson sent shockwaves through Chicago's business community. 2 counts of first-degree murder, one for Destiny Robinson, and now, a decade later, one for Patricia Thompson. The grainy security footage Angela Thompson finally released showed Marcus entering his mother's office that fatal night in 2014 and leaving alone 2 hours later. February 1st, 2024, the trial became the most closely watched case in Chicago's recent history. The courthouse steps crowded daily with reporters, activists, and members of Chicago's black business elite, many of whom had attended what should have been Marcus and Destiny's wedding. The defendant's path to success was paved with blood, prosecutor James Martinez declared in his opening statement. First his mother's, to hide his theft of community funds, and then his fiancée's, to hide his shameful origins. This is a story of a man who would do anything to maintain his image of success. February 15th, 2024, Dan Carter's testimony proved devastating. Under oath, he detailed how Destiny had discovered the truth about Patricia Thompson's death through old company records. She couldn't live with it, he testified, his voice breaking. She wasn't just planning to call off the wedding, she was going to turn Marcus in. March 1st, 2024, Angela Thompson finally took the stand. 10 years of exile had hardened her, but her testimony carried the weight of long-awaited justice. She described discovering her sister's investigation into the missing funds, their last phone call, and her decade-long quest to expose the truth. "I watched him build his empire on my sister's grave," she testified. Each new Thompson Properties development was another mockery of Patricia's memory. She died trying to protect our community's future, and he turned her death into his stepping stone. March 15th, 2024. The jury needed only 6 hours to reach their verdict. Marcus Thompson, once Chicago's rising star, was found guilty on all counts. As the judge delivered his sentence, life imprisonment without possibility of parole, Marcus finally showed emotion, tears streaming down his face as he turned to look at Angela Thompson. "I never meant for any of this to happen," he said during his allocution. "Mom was just supposed to stay away from the office that night. Destiny was just supposed to walk down that aisle. Everything I built, everything I achieved, was to make them proud. And now." April 1st, 2024, the aftermath transformed Chicago's business landscape. Thompson Properties was dissolved, its assets frozen for restitution. Dan Carter granted immunity for his testimony, established a foundation in Destiny's name to support Black women in business. The Southside Development Funds, with accumulated interest, were finally returned to the community. Angela Thompson emerged as an unlikely guardian of her sister's legacy. Using evidence gathered during her investigation, she helped authorities uncover similar fraud schemes across the city's development projects. The Patricia Thompson Accountability Act was passed, establishing stricter oversight of community development funds. 1 year after the tragedy, Chicago's elite gathered again at the DuSable Black History Museum, this time not for a wedding, but for the inauguration of the Destiny Robinson Business Leadership Program. In the front row sat Angela Thompson, beside Destiny's parents and Dan Carter. As the city prepared to welcome another new year, the events at the Palmer House Hotel had become more than just Chicago's crime of the year. They had become a cautionary tale about the price of ambition, the weight of secrets, and the true cost of justice delayed. In her office at the Chicago Police Department, Detective Bratt added a final note to the case file. Some crimes echo across years. Some secrets poison everything they touch. And sometimes, justice wears a wedding dress. She closed the file marked Thompson Robinson Case 2024 and placed it in the archives, where it would remain as testimony to a New Year's Day when Chicago's perfect couple proved that the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves.